Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. In today's video, we're gonna do The last time I was out, I got this crazy idea in my head that I wanted to go after some gar. Now, if you don't know what a gar is, there are several different types of gar. They're a freshwater fish. In fact, they actually predate the dinosaurs, and they're a very primitive type of fish. Now, they have been known to attack humans. So, this should be pretty exciting. This is also going to be a first for me because I've never actually caught a gar before. So, it should be fun. So, I woke up early, grabbed all my gear, headed out, and I went straight to the lake. When I arrived at the lake, it was dead calm. The surface of the water was so still that it looked like glass. As I pulled out my boat, there were hundreds of gar rolling on the surface. Now, I didn't think it would be this easy, but let me tell you, this will change. By the end of this video, everything changed when I showed these people the truth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain. As I was pulling out into the middle of the lake, I started seeing all these locals come out and start fishing. Now, most of them were in small boats, just like mine. Most of them had sabiki rigs, which are great for catching bait. Others had rods and reels with big old live minnows on the end of their line. There was even one guy out there casting a big old spoon trying to get one of those gar. Now, normally when I go fishing, I like to keep to myself. I mind my own business and I stay out of the way. But this day was different. One of the locals kept giving me dirty looks, and I couldn't figure out why. At first, I thought maybe he was just having a bad day, or maybe he didn't like the way I was fishing. But then I started noticing other things. For example, everyone on the lake was staying in the middle of the lake. No one was going near the shore. Everyone was only fishing in 2 to 4 feet of water. That was really strange to me. Also, everyone was only fishing during daylight. I saw several trucks pull up with boats on the back, and the owners of the boats got out, baited their hooks, and started fishing. And I noticed they were all using the same type of rig. It almost looked like a trot line, except instead of one main line with several poles tied off to it, they had individual lines with a float and a weight on the bottom. Then they would just cast it out, let it sit, and then reel it in. This was strange to me. I didn't know what they were trying to catch. I didn't ask any questions because I was really focused on what I was doing. Now, what I was doing was filming a TikTok. I was going to film a few minutes of me fishing, maybe a minute or two of me reeling in a fish, and then I was gone. Nah, move on. Well, right as I dropped my line back into the water, one of the guys who was watching me from afar finally said something. He hollered across the lake, "Hey, you can't do that." I stopped what I was doing and asked him, "What do you mean?" He came over and told me, "You're not allowed to fish from a boat here. You have to fish from shore." I looked around and noticed that every single boat was indeed anchored away from the shoreline. "Where are you from?" "Because where I'm from, you can fish anywhere you want to as long as your boat is registered and you have a fishing license." He looked me up and down and said, "This isn't where you're from. This is private property, and if you want to fish here, you have to fish from shore." Now, I didn't believe him, but I didn't want to make an enemy in this small town, so I decided to play along. I said, "Oh, okay, thanks for letting me know," picked up my anchor, and headed toward the nearest shore. Once I was close enough to shore, I hopped out of the boat and waded into the water. I baited up my hook and cast my line out into the water. I didn't say anything to the man who had approached me earlier, but I could see him looking at me from his boat. I didn't even bother trying to hide it. I just smiled and waved. Well, about 30 minutes went by, and I hadn't gotten a single bite. I decided to go back out to my boat and start trolling around the lake. The man who had approached me earlier saw me get back in my boat and start trolling around the lake. He started yelling at me. "Hey, I told you no boats. You're not supposed to be out here." I looked at him and said, "You didn't tell me this was private property when I first got out here. If it's private property, why is it open to the public? Why do you let other people fish out here?" He started making excuses, but I cut him off. "Never mind. I see what's going on now. You guys are trying to protect your fishing spots. I understand that, but I do appreciate you coming up to me and telling me what I can and can't do. I'm not from around here, but if I was, I would have known better than to listen to you." He started apologizing, but I cut him off again. "Don't worry about it. I am sure we can all agree that we'd rather have someone else catch our fish than see them go to waste. Don't worry, I'll take care of them." He looked at me confused and asked, "What do you mean?" I just smiled and said, "You'll see." I continued on my way and left him and the rest of the fishermen alone. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it felt good to stick it to these guys. I mean, they tried to stop me from fishing where I wanted to fish. They tried to tell me what I could and couldn't do. They tried to threaten me, but in the end, I showed them the truth. I showed them that I wasn't gonna be intimidated by them. I showed them that I wasn't afraid of them. And I showed them that I wasn't gonna let them control me. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as I moved to shore, the bites completely stopped. Not a single person on that lake caught a single fish. The funny thing is that these guys had been fishing for hours before I arrived, and they were all experienced fishermen. But as soon as I showed up, everything changed. All the fish stopped biting. The gar rolled up on the surface of the water, but none of them would take a bait. These guys were so frustrated that they started packing up and leaving. Some of them had been out there since before daylight and hadn't even gotten a single bite. And as they packed up and left, they were even more frustrated. They didn't understand why the fish wouldn't bite. Now, I didn't feel bad for them at all. They had brought it on themselves. They had tried to stop me from fishing. They had tried to tell me what I could and couldn't do. They had tried to threaten me. But in the end, I showed them the truth. I showed them that I wasn't going to be intimidated by them. I showed them that I wasn't afraid of them. And I showed them that I wasn't going to let them control me. Now, I don't know if you believe in karma or not, but I do. And I think that karma is what happened to these guys. They got what was coming to them. Now, I'm not saying that this happens to everyone who tries to mess with you. I am not saying that this happens to everyone who tries to stop you from doing what you love. But in this case, it did. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe. I'm also going to leave a link below to my podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.